Hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome to this video. In this video we will be implementing a sign-up feature in NestJS using GraphQL, Prisma and Postgres. In order to be able to follow along, please make sure that you have configured NestJS in a way that it works with GraphQL, Prisma and Postgres. If you haven't done so, please make sure to check out the video down below in the description. This video will teach you step by step how to get to the starting point of this video here. And yeah, then you should be fine and you should be able to code along with me. Now I will give you a little demo of what we are going to be implementing. You see here a mutation called Signup. And this mutation expects some input, which you see here down below. It expects an email, a username and a password. And then it returns something from the server. It returns the access token, the refresh token, and then a user object. And here it returns some subfields of the user. It doesn't return the whole user, it just returns the email and the username. Now let's see what's happening if we hit play. And here we get this response. We see bad user input. And here we see some errors, right? Some messages. And this is because we will also implement basic validation. Now let's try to type something in for the email, for the username and for the password. Let's hit play again. And now we get again an error and it says email must be an email. So here we must provide a valid email with this structure here. And now let's try again. And nice, it worked. We see we get back an access token, a refresh token, and then also we get back a user object with an email and a username. This is what we are going to be implementing in this video. And yeah, I would say without further ado, let's get started. Alright, now it's time to get our hands dirty. Please make sure that you have properly hooked up NestJS with GraphQL, Prisma and Postgres. If you haven't done so, please look down below in the description. There's a video which explains you all the steps you need to take in order to be on the same page with me now. And yeah, so let's get started. First things first, let's delete a few files that we do not need. We can delete the prisma.service.spec file. We can delete the app.controller.spec file. And we can delete the app controller and the app.service file. Then we can go to app.module and delete these two imports here. And then also you see down below that we need to delete the app controller here from the array and also the app service. What you see here now is that we have errors here, right? So what you can do if you also have these errors, you can go to this file here, eslint.rc.js, and you can delete this entry here. Plugin :prettier/recommended and save this file. And now all these errors are gone. At the moment we have an error here that a query root type must be provided. We will work on this now. Let's open up a new terminal window. And we will create another resource called auth, nest, G for generate, then resource, and then auth. And we will choose GraphQL code first. And for now, we want to have some CRUD entry points. This will provide us some boilerplate, so we do not have to write that much. So we hit yes here, hit enter. And what you see here now is that this GraphQL error is gone, but we got a new error. We can't reach our database server. This is because our Docker container is not running. Remember, we have a service here in our Docker Compose file. So let's spin up an instance of our Postgres database. by writing docker compose up. And now this error should be gone, I think. Yep, so far so good. And since we chose GraphQL code first approach, we have a schema.jql file here. At the moment, this is not really useful because GraphQL auto-generates the content of this file based on DTOs and entities. And if we look in our auth module under the DTO folder, we see we have these two DTOs, but they have this example field here because this was all auto-generated by NestJS. So in order to get a proper schema.jql file here, we need to work on our DTOs, set them up properly, and we also need to work on our entities because everywhere you see this example field. And yeah, we will start working on it now. Let's start with our DTO. We will have one DTO here called sign-response.ts. And here I will paste in some stuff. As you can see here, we have a sign-in response and it has 3 fields. We have 2 strings, an access token and a refresh token. And then also we have another field which is of type user. So this will be an object with some properties that we can send back. And I named it sign response because sign in and sign up will send back the same data to the user. And so I named it sign, yeah, for signing in and signing up. It might be not the best name here, right? If you want, you can come up with a better name, of course. But yeah, I named it sign-response. So whenever we sign in or sign up, this data will be sent back to the client. And here you see an object type and a field decorator, and these are very important because these operators will tell GraphQL that it needs to create structures based on this sign-in response in this schema.jql file here. At the moment, you see we have no type for sign response, and this will change soon, so bear with me. First of all, let's create a user entity here because we do not have a user entity at the moment. So I just open another terminal, why not? And then I do nest G for generate, then module, and then user. And in it, I create a file called user.entity.ts. And here I paste in some code again. And again, you see here's this object type and field decorator. And the user will have an ID, a username, and an email. And this describes the object that we want to send back whenever we sign in or sign up. Now this error is gone here. And what we also can do in DTOs is we can perform some simple validation using declarators. So I just import 2, is not empty and is string, and we just can put them above each field. Now what we can do is we can rename this create auth input because the name is not really descriptive. I will name it something like sign up input.ts. And here I will take some stuff and paste it in again. So what's going on here? In order to sign up a user, we need the username, the email, and the password. And then also we perform some simple validation here using these 2 decorators. And then also we need to perform another step so that this basic validation can work. We need to go to main.ts. And then we need to write down underneath this const app line app.use. And then here we can choose app.use global pipes like this. And then we just provide as argument new validation pipe parentheses like this. And of course we need to import it. from NestJS common. And now we have basic validation. We will test it in one moment. But first of all, let's fix all these errors here that we have in these files. So we have a sign up input here, right? And we need to update it here because we do not have a create auth input anymore. So let's fix it. And we need to do it here. We need to import it. And also let's change it like this. And here as well. And let's name it here sign up input with a small letter. And here as well. Now let's go to our Auth Resolver. And here some work needs to be done. You see we have this create auth mutation. This is not a nice name. Just let's name it sign up like this. And that's it. And also let's change the return type here of this mutation. At the moment it's auth. Let's change it to sign response. And here you see we only have sign in response. This is a mistake by me. Let's go back to the sign response. We need to change the name here. Let's name it sign response like this. And now we should be able to import it here. Sign response, yep, like this. And what you will also see now is if we go to schema.jql, we have a sign response here, right? It's completely auto-generated for us. That's a good thing. And we also have a sign up input and so on. So this is GraphQL code first approach. We write the code in our DTOs and entities, and this file gets auto-generated. And now let's test how the basic validation works. I'm here in the playground, and here you can make mutations and queries. And let's try to sign up. Here we have a nice schema which tells us what to do. We make a mutation, we name it sign up. This name here is not important. And then we provide some input, which is of type sign up input, which is this thing here, right? We provide an email, password, username. All of them have to be string. And then finally we do the mutation here, which is called sign up, right? Like this here. Because in our resolver, we named it sign up, right? But this name here can be anything. But optimally, it should be very descriptive. And yeah, we can just name it sign up. All right, cool. And then we can define some fields that we want to be returned. And here we just want to be returned the access token, refresh token, and then the user. And since the user is an object, which has so-called subfields, we can also tell GraphQL what subfields we want to have from the user. And we want to have the email, for example, and the username. And since I named the input variable here, input with $, right? You always have to provide a $sign for the variable. I have to name it input here as well. Down below under query variables, there I have to provide a dictionary. And the dictionary needs to have a key called input because I named this variable here input. And then it needs to have all the properties of this sign up input type, right? So it needs to have email, password, and username. And then also what I forgot to tell you is that here the sign up mutation needs to have an argument with the key of sign up input. So the name must be exactly sign up input. And then we just pass in our variable, which is this thing here, right? Now let's try our basic validation. What you see here is that I have provided an email, a username, but an empty password. Let's see what we get back from our server. I just hit play. And here we get back a bad request exception, bad user input, and then the message password should not be empty. I just can delete the username here. Let's try again. And we get back username should not be empty. And I can do the same for the email. And then there we go. Email should not be empty. All right, pretty cool. Now let's work on our auth service and implement a sign up functionality. Let's go. At the moment in our auth service, we do not do anything good, right? We just have this boilerplate here that was provided by NestJS, right? First things first, we need a few services here in our auth service. So let's perform dependency injection via constructor. And here in these parentheses, let's type private Prisma : Prisma service, then comma, private Jwt service, which is of type Jwt service. And at the moment, we do not have this Jwt service. So let's install it. And we can do it by npm I and then at nestjs/jwt. And then also we need another package, npm I and then at nestjs/config. Now we have to go back to our app.module, and then under imports in this array, we have to write config module, and I do not get any completion here for importing it. So let me import it manually. There we go. We import the config module from nestjs config. And here we say config module dot for root. And we say it should be global like this. And what this config module allows us is to read .env files globally in our app. And here in this .env file, we will have a few environment variables, and in order to read them, we need this config module here. Since we installed the Jwt service, we need to go to our auth.module, and here under providers in this array, we need to add the Jwt service. And I do not get any auto-completion here, so let's import it manually from nestjs/jwt. And in order to use our Prisma service in our auth module, we need to add it here to this providers array, Prisma service. So this service is needed to perform CRUD operations, yeah. So we are able to create, read, update, and delete entries in our database. All right, cool. Now let's go to our auth service again. First of all, we can close a few files here. Now let's go to our auth service. Here we can import our Jwt service. And also we need our config service, which is of type config service. This config service will help us to read environment variables from the .env file. And this Jwt service will help us to sign tokens. And how this works, you will see in a bit. So just don't worry, just bear with me. We will start to make use of them soon. And this service we will name sign up, same as our mutation, right? And here we need to make use of another package in order to hash passwords, because we never store plain passwords from the client in our database. We will hash them before we store them. And in order to do so, we need to install another package. I have done it already. And it's called argon2. Yeah, this is what you need to install, argon2. And then you need to import it like this. Import star, meaning everything, as argon from argon2. And now we can hash our password by writing const hashed password is equal to argon hash sign up input password. And you see that we get really nice auto completion because of TypeScript. This is super cool. And then after hashing the password, we can create a new user. But before we do so, let's make this thing async and let's await this argon.hash. Now we can say const user is equal to await this.prisma. Yeah, we use our Prisma service, and here we have to access the user, and then we can create a user. And again, we can use user here because we have the schema.prisma file, and in it we have a user model. If we had other models here, we could also use other names here, such as animal or whatsoever, to perform CRUD operations. But important, whenever you add a new model here to the schema.prisma file, you need to run the command npx prisma generate in order to be able to perform CRUD operations on the newly created model, right? Okay, cool. Now we have to provide a data property here. And then we can say username should have a value of signup input username, and then the password should have a value of hashed password like this. And of course, we need to provide an email, signup input.email like this. And here I still get an error because in our schema.prisma file, we named this column hashed password. So I can name this here hashed password as well, right? Now the error is gone. And since these two are identical, I just can omit one and write it like this. Modern JavaScript syntax, basically. And this would create a user in our database now. All right, so far so good. Now let's create two helper methods, and why we need them you will see in a moment. So just bear with me. Let's create an async method called createTokens. Which needs as arguments the user ID, which is a number, and then also an email, which is a string. And in it, we will create our access token and our refresh token using the Jwt Service. And then also we can provide some options here as an object. And here we say expires in maybe 10 seconds, just in order to test it like this. And here for the refresh token, we just say 7 days. And in order to sign a token, we also need a secret. This is what we also provide in this options object here. Secret, colon, and here we can say this.config service .get and then access token secret like this. And I copy this here and paste it in down below in the options object here like this. But this will be our refresh token. And then we return an object containing the access token and the refresh token. Now important here, you see we access the environment variables, right? But we do not have them at the moment. So let's go to our .env file here. And let's say access token secret will be just secret. Yeah, because we are just practicing, we use a simple secret, but never use a secret like this in production or so, right? And then also we need to create another environment variable called refresh token secret. And we just give it a secret of banana, for example. Now let's create another helper method called async update refresh token. And it takes as arguments the user ID and the refresh token. Then it hashes the refresh token. And then it updates the user where the ID is equal to the user ID, and as starter we provide the hashed refresh token like this. And of course a curly bracket is missing here. All right, now let's go back to our signup method here. As you can see here, we've just created a user with the username, hash password and email. But here is now hashed refresh token, right? And we do not need to provide it right away because here in our schema.prisma file, we made the hashed refresh token optional. So what we can do next is we can create our access token and our refresh token, const, and then we provide curly brackets and then access token, refresh token. We do destructuring here and then we say await this dot create tokens. And we have to provide the user.id and also user.email for this. Now that we have our tokens, let's update the user because at the moment it still has no hashed refresh token. So let's use the other helper and let's write await this dot update refresh token and we provide the user ID and the refresh token. And then finally we want to provide a response, right? We want to return something to the user and we can do it via return. And then we provide an object here and we want to return the access token, the refresh token, and why not the user. Okay, cool. Now we are done with our basic sign up functionality. We basically take the password that we get from the client, we hash it, then we create a new user with the input from the client, right? We take the username, the hashed password and then the email. And then after we have created a user, we create the access token and the refresh token by using the user ID and the email. This is what we will encode in our JWT. And finally, we update the refresh token in our database, which is at the moment empty, right? We do not have any value for the hash refresh token in our database. So here we will update this. So now the user has a hash refresh token. And then we just return the access token, refresh token and the user to the client, yeah, to the user. And again, how we create these tokens is by using this sign method here, right? And then we are encoding our user ID and email and then also a specific expiry date. And the most important thing is that we use a secret here, which is only known to the server. And this secret helps us to make the token really safe. All right, now let's go back to our Auth Resolver. Here I forgot something. Here we need to return this auth service and then of course sign up like this. And now let's go back to our playground. And here you see I provided some input for the email, username and password. Let's see what happens if I click play. And yay, we get back an access token, a refresh token, and then also a user object with the subfields of email and username. It seems to work. One thing that is not so beautiful is that here as email we provided just the letter G and we didn't get any error here. So here we could perform better validation. Maybe let's do it. It's pretty simple. We can go back to our signup_input.ts_DTO and here we can provide and here we can use another decorator. And I think it's called isEmail or so. Yep, like this. Now let's try again. And here we get an error now because email must be an email, right? So the email field must be an email. Now let's provide a valid email here. g@gmail.com. And now it works. And now we have a newly created user in our Postgres database. And this user has a valid refresh token with an expiry date of 7 days. Okay guys, that's it. This was a very long video, where we implemented basic sign-up functionality in NestJS using GraphQL, Prisma and Postgres. In the next video, we will implement the sign-in functionality. I hope to see you there. I would be very happy. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.